This is a crankbait, and by the end of this video, I'm gonna let you know everything you need to know on how to fish them successfully and how to catch big bass off them. So without further ado, let's get into it. So a crankbait is a type of lure that we're all pretty dang familiar with, and they can really be narrowed down into two different types. You have your square bills like this one, and your deep diving cranks like this guy right here with that big bill. Why the variation? Well, because they're both meant for different types of fishing in a different area. So I'm gonna talk about the square bill first. So this right here is a Strike King square bill. It is a chartreuse color. I got a little snap swivel right there to get a little more action, and square bills are actually something that dominate in this time of year right now, the spawn period. They dominate in this time because of the seasonal patterns of bass. During this time, bass are going to the shallows, they're making beds, and they're spawning. You know, they're putting their eggs down and trying to get the next generation to come. This is where he comes into play. The square bill is meant for shallower fishing. He dives down there perfect depths with that little kind of shallower, shorter little bill opposed to a deep crank, and he just wobbles. He's a really robust little wobbling bait, and he gets the job done. He's a fatter style bait, which actually will trigger a bass to be a little bit more territorial because he's a little bit bigger. He's not any like skinny minnow, you know, he's a little bit bigger of a kind of prey fish. It can actually might pose a threat to its children or its eggs, whatever is on the bed right now. The other thing about this one in particular, this is a chartreuse color. I love to throw this color during, like, you know, murky waters, all that kind of stuff, to really just get it so they can see it. But he comes and he dominates in the shallows. He makes a ton of little lower vibrations because, like I said, he's a lower, robust, wobbling little bait, and he is just an awesome type of bait to throw during this time of year. This personally is a Strike King square bill, so it's made by Strike King, and I absolutely love this little guy for getting it done and fishing the beds. Now, where do you cast them? You cast them basically towards structure, or if you see a bed, cast them towards the bed. You want to hit productive points because a square bill is going to target the most productive bass at the time, the ones that have the most energy and all that kind of stuff. So you want to target where you know that there's going to be bass. That's why beds and structure are so efficient. And like I said, throw them towards the shallows, you know, cast them towards the bank, reel them back in, you at a steady retrieve, or you can spice it up a little bit. You can add some fast crank here, slow crank there, you know, do a steady retrieve with some fast cranks in between to try to get a little bit more darting action. Whatever you want to do, change it up and just keep casting this little guy during this spawn period, and he will produce bass for you. Now, the other basic type of crankbait is a deep diving crankbait. They got a lot deeper bill like this that you see right here. This is a Rapala Shadow Wrap. It's one of my favorite little type of baits for this kind of deep diving crankbait. The reason for that, it's just a good size, an all-around good size. Has an awesome lifelike shad color, especially when I'm fishing, you know, like post-spawn, and they really just know they want to eat what they already know is there, what they already know is true. So these realistic colors and these realistic skins are really good for that time of year. But crankbaits fish the deeper column when bass are going deeper. This can be caused either by storms, by heat, whatever. When the bass are going deeper, throw a crankbait. This will get to that column, and they stay down that column. Same thing, they do a little vibrating back and forth action that's really, you know, robust and gets a low rumbling through the water that the bass can pick up on. But the biggest thing about this is you want to fish them bumping into stuff. So you actually want them to hit things like tree limbs, rocks on the bottom, all that kind of stuff. That's going to give them a little, like, boom, pause action, and that is like bass candy. It's going to set them on, just boom. Bass are going to go and slam it. So I know that sounds weird. This thing's covered in treble hooks. You're like, you want me to bump it into structure? I promise you, it will come at a loss. Everyone loses crankbaits, but they do catch big fish, and they are most effective when you get that little bump in action when you hit structure. So hit them into tree limbs, hit them into rocks, hit them into logs, whatever you want to hit them in, and hopefully this bill will protect them a little bit more. With that though, I love to get crankbaits that have either a longer or a fatter bill, and the reason for that is it kind of gives them a little more protection. If it's a longer bill, that's going to be the first thing that structure is going to bump into, and it's actually going to prevent you a little bit less from bumping into snacks. So look, if my hand's a tree limb and I bump it in, it might just bounce me over and I can keep diving down and I still get that bump in action. With that, crankbaits come in all different shapes and sizes. Here I have a skinnier crankbait made by Lucky Craft in the sexy shad color. It's an awesome crankbait for just, fishing, this spawn time of year. And here I have a fatter crankbait. This is made by Strike King, and I mainly fish this in like post-spawn when the water starts getting colder that time of year. Reason for that is the bass themselves start feeding on bigger and fatter forage fish because they've been fattening up all year. And so this guy's before the spawn, and during the spawn, he's after the spawn. And you really just want to plan your sizes and your shapes accordingly. Both of them are fantastic. Lucky Craft and Strike King, both fantastic companies. He has a huge freaking wide bill on him, which is going to make him dive really, really deep and get him an even bigger side-to-side action. He has a longer bill, which is going to make him go down deeper and stay down there a little bit longer and also help him not get stuck on all those things, those logs, those rock limbs, like I mentioned earlier, a little bit better. And they both are deep diving crankbaits, and they both work in their certain times of periods. When the water's getting colder, throw a fatter guy. When it's still hot and it's still spring, throw the skinnier guy. Both these shad colors, these sexy shads, are really, really good, almost all-time year colors. They work in the summer, they work in the winter, they work in the spawn, and they're really, really good colors to start getting into and start throwing because they're just kind of something that bass can rely on. They kind of recognize it. This little yellow stripe kind of gives it a little bit of fun. Let me see if I can get that in here real quick. See that right there? That yellow stripe kind of gives it a little bit of fun. And of course, they also come with rattles, which also attracts the bass even more. So other than just size, shapes, and how to fish them, bumping them in, that stuff, that's the key ingredient, guys. Don't forget that you gotta bump them into stuff to get them to get that cool action. The color of a crankbait actually matters a lot. Here I have a bluegill color, also made by Lucky Craft Crankbait. And this I like to fish during the springtime period. That's when the bass start feeding on bluegill a lot, and they really just start hitting that bluegill as bass candy. And this is kind of a little more sunfish color. It's got that awesome yellow belly. But you want to pick your colors, and you want to pick, your vibrant chartreuses, your bright whites, all that kind of stuff, You want to pick your colors along with your shapes. It kind of depends on what time of year and what type of fish are most dominating your fishery right now. You want to target a bait fish. These are not necessarily a fully action bait. Obviously, the action still does get bass to bite, but they're only you fool them on the color that goes in tangent with the action. So the color is a huge thing. So you want to base it off of what kind of colors already work at your fishery, and what type of bait fish you already have swimming around there, in general. Now, the most important thing about fishing a crankbait is you want to keep them in the sweet zone at all times. What I mean by that is a crankbait dives deep, okay? These deep divers with these big bills, they dive deep. We've already established that, okay? In order to get them to stay at their deepest depth that they dive for the longest period of time, you need to have the most line out as possible, which means you need to cast the furthest, okay? Here's why. So the longer you drag him in, he's going to do a pendulum swing. So he's going to come down, woo, like that, okay? And the longer he's right here, down there at the bottom where the bass are, because you're fishing them for when the bass are deeper down in the water. So the longer he's at his deepest part that he can reach, that sweet zone, the better. The way you do that is by throwing them on a longer rod. This is my crankbait rod right here. It's a Bass Pro Comp graphite rod, and it is a 7-foot 3-inch rod, so it's a lot longer of a rod. It's also a medium action, and the reason for that is I can get a better flick on it when I'm trying to cast these things as far as possible, and that's why you want to cast a crankbait as far away as possible, which is what this long rod helps accomplish. That will get them down diving deeper, get them in that sweet zone a little bit longer, and thus bring you more bites. Like I said, guys, there are pretty much endless possibilities to fish with crankbaits. You can get some that even have these feathers on the end that are really good for jerking. You can even get double jointed jerk baits that make it just wild a little bit side. These are both made by the Rapala company. They're a fantastic company for all hard baits. I love Rapala, and really there are so many endless possibilities with crankbaits. So get out there, start casting them, and go catch mondos, guys. I hope these tips help you, and please do not forget to subscribe if they did, so you can learn more about fishing. I'll have more tip videos coming out on a weekly basis, and so please do not forget to subscribe. Also, please go check out Follow the Action Outdoor Lines. They make awesome designs like this. They make it in hoodies, shirts, hats, koozies, which is a freaking little cup cooler holder thing, which is awesome. They make so many types of different stuff, guys, and all of their designs are awesome for anywhere from fishing to hunting. They are outdoor designs made by outdoorsmen, so you can go check them out. They just linked in my bio. You can actually use code UNREAL for 20% off. I will put that in the description. I'll put the link in the description with it, and if you use that code UNREAL, it helps me out a ton on my journey, so I would greatly appreciate that, guys. So I hope these tips help, and as always, you guys better have an amazing day, and don't forget to be happy fishing, y'all.